Some objects are not just old, they are awake. The antique dealer who first found it said it felt cold. He'd place it on a shelf, only to find it on the floor the next morning, facing the door, as if it wanted to leave. Years later, a new family, their babysitter reported hearing faint giggling from the room. She peeked in and saw the doll, sitting upright in the toy box, staring right at her. She swore it wasn't there before. An urban explorer who broke into the abandoned house felt watched. His camera battery died suddenly. When he turned his flashlight back to the corner where the doll was, it was gone. Investigators set up cameras. What they captured defied explanation, unseen forces, and undeniable movement. Tonight, I'm spending the night with the infamous doll, and I'm not leaving until I debunk this myth. Okay, Dolly, show me what you've got. Move, make a sound, do anything. See? Nothing. Just a dusty old toy. At first, it was subtle, equipment failures, noises he dismissed as the old house settling. But then, the doll wasn't where he left it. What the hell? Leo's livestream cut out at 3:13 a.m. This footage was recovered from his camera's memory card. The doll is still waiting. Leo's disappearance was never solved. The house was sealed, and the doll became police evidence. But the story was far from over. A montage of news headlines flashes across the screen, each one asking the same question: where is vlogger Leo Adams? We see quick cuts of the abandoned house, its windows like vacant eyes, its doors barred by yellow police tape. The camera then pushes in on a single object, the doll, sitting silently on a cold metal table inside a sterile evidence locker. Its painted smile seems to mock the silence. The official investigation may have hit a dead end, but for some, the real horror was just beginning to unfold. Locked away under the illusion of safety, the case caught the attention of Dr. Alistair Finch, a historian of cursed objects. He knew this was no simple haunting, it was a prison. In the quiet solitude of his study, surrounded by the weight of centuries-old books and artifacts, whispering their own dark histories, Dr. Finch spreads out the case file. The cover photo is a stark, clinical shot of the doll. For most, it was a piece of evidence, a child's toy tied to a tragedy. But Finch saw something more. His fingers traced the outline of the doll's face in the photo. He recognized the pattern, the specific energy that clung to objects, not just haunted by a spirit, but designed to contain one. He understood that the house wasn't the source of the evil, it was merely the stage. The doll was the cage, and its prisoner was growing stronger. Finch's research uncovered the doll's tragic past. It belonged to a girl named Annalise who died suddenly. Her heartbroken mother, desperate and dabbling in dark arts, performed a ritual to bind her daughter's spirit to the toy. But she didn't bring Annalise back. She opened a door for something else. The story emerged from brittle newspaper clippings and forgotten family journals. Sepia-toned photographs painted a picture of a happy family, shattered by sudden illness. One image shows a young Annalise, her eyes bright with life, clutching the doll as if it were her most precious friend. The following photos tell a different tale. The joy fades from their faces, replaced by a deep, hollow grief. The final image is of a small, ornate coffin, a devastating punctuation mark on a short life. The mother, a woman named Alara, refused to let go. In her grief, she turned to forbidden texts, seeking a way to keep her daughter close forever. The ritual she performed wasn't a resurrection, it was an invitation. She bound a spirit to the doll, but it wasn't the gentle soul of her child. It was something ancient, malevolent, and hungry, drawn to her sorrow, like a predator to the scent of blood. The entity trapped within feeds on misery and attention. Finch's voice is low and grim, his face etched with worry as he speaks directly to an unseen interviewer. Leo's terror gave it immense power. Now, it's not just waiting to be found, it's looking for a way out. His study is dark, the only light catching the dust motes dancing in the air and the glint of fear in his eyes. The footage cuts sharply to an extreme close-up of the doll's single, glassy eye as it sits in the evidence locker. The manufactured innocence of its face is a grotesque mask for the consciousness lurking within. Finch explains that every scream, every jump scare, every viewer who watched Leo's video fed the entity. It has been starving for decades, but Leo's broadcast was a feast. It's no longer a passive prisoner content with its small domain. It has tasted the modern world's vast network of fear and attention, and it wants more. The final shot is from the security camera inside the evidence locker. The digital timestamp in the corner glows, 3:13 a.m. The feed suddenly glitches, dissolving into a chaotic burst of static. When the image snaps back into focus, the chair where the doll sat is empty. A chill hangs in the air. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the camera pans toward the heavy, reinforced steel door of the locker. A thin dark line begins to appear on the metal, etching itself into the surface like a claw mark, slow and deliberate. The sound of scratching, faint at first, grows louder. The official report called it a theft, an impossible breach of a secure facility. But Officer Miller, the man on duty that night, knows what really happened. The call came in just after sunrise, a frantic report from the precinct's evidence clerk. Something was missing from the high-security evidence locker, something that shouldn't have been able to move. The steel door, which requires 2 separate keys and a biometric scan to open, was found slightly ajar, its surface marred by a single deep scratch. Inside, forensic officers moved with a tense, almost fearful energy, dusting for prints around the vacant space where the object had been kept. The focus of their investigation, however, wasn't a weapon or a bag of narcotics. It was an empty wooden chair, sitting under a single harsh light, right in the center of the room. This wasn't a simple case of a break-in. The official story felt thin, a weak attempt to explain away the unexplainable. For Officer Miller, who had been alone on the night watch, the truth was far more terrifying than any thief. In the cold, sterile environment of an interrogation room, Officer Miller recounted the events of his shift, his voice raspy with exhaustion. His hands, marked by a slight, uncontrollable tremble, wrapped around a steaming foam coffee cup, as if it were a lifeline. He looked less like a police officer, and more like a man haunted by a memory he couldn't shake. It was a quiet night, he began, his gaze fixed on a point just past the two-way mirror. Dead silent, the way it usually is after 3 a.m. Then, around 3:15, I heard a sound over the intercom system. It was faint at first, easy to dismiss. He paused, taking a shaky sip of coffee. It sounded like a giggle, a little girl's giggle. I remember thinking I was just tired, my mind playing tricks on me. You hear things in a big, empty building like this, but this sound was different. It felt close. Miller's attention was drawn to the bank of monitors at his security desk, each screen a silent grayscale window into the precinct's deserted corridors. He had been completing his nightly report when the strange noise had broken the silence. I checked the monitor for Locker 7, where they kept it. His voice dropped to a near whisper. The feed was just snow, pure static. It happens sometimes, a technical glitch. I was about to file a maintenance report, ready to just log the issue and move on. He leaned forward, his eyes widening slightly with the memory. Then, just as suddenly as it went out, the picture snapped back into focus, but the room wasn't the same. The chair was there, but it was empty. The doll was gone. The sudden clarity of the image was more jarring than the static, a perfect, undisturbed room with one crucial, horrifying absence. But it wasn't just gone from the room. A chill, unlike the building's drafty air conditioning, crept over him. He felt a cold spot in the hall, a sudden drop in temperature that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. He grabbed his maglite and pushed away from the desk, his heart pounding against his ribs. The long, sterile hallway leading to the evidence room seemed to stretch into infinity, his footsteps echoing unnaturally in the silence. As he neared the sealed steel door, he peered into the small, reinforced glass window. For a split second, he saw it, reflected in the glass, not inside the room, but standing right behind him down the hall, was the doll. Its painted-on smile seemed to mock him in the dim light. He whipped around, flashlight beam cutting wildly through the darkness. The hallway was empty. He was completely, utterly alone, his panicked breaths the only sound. They put me on leave, Miller concluded, his voice hollow, defeated. Psych evaluation said I was seeing things, that the stress of the job had finally gotten to me. He stared down at his trembling hands, a man whose reality had been shattered in a single night. But I'm telling you, it didn't get stolen, it walked out. The final shot cuts from his terrified face to a quiet, dark suburban street. Streetlights cast long shadows across manicured lawns. A single child's tricycle sits abandoned on a sidewalk, its front wheel slightly turned. Tucked into the tricycle's small wire basket, barely visible in the gloom, sits the doll. Its glass eyes seem to watch the darkened windows of the houses, as if it's out there, looking for a new home. It didn't take long to be found. To an innocent eye, it was just a doll that needed a home, a new friend. On a sunny suburban morning, a young girl named Lily spotted the doll, left abandoned on a tricycle. She picked it up, her smile wide with the joy of discovery, completely unaware of what she was bringing into her life. The house was filled with laughter again. Lily's cheerful, brightly colored bedroom became the doll's new home, the setting for imaginary tea parties and whispered secrets. But the silence that followed was different. Heavier. The entity was patient, quiet, listening. For a split second, as Lily turned away to pour more tea, the doll's head appeared to turn slightly towards the camera, its painted eyes holding a knowing gaze. It waited until the house was still. It waited for the dark. Moonlight streamed into Lily's room as she slept peacefully. The camera slowly pushes in on the doll, now sitting ominously on a high shelf, its silhouette dark against the window. The bedroom door, which had been firmly closed, slowly creaks open on its own. It wasn't just in the house anymore. It had found Annalise again. The final shot, from the doll's point of view, looks down at the sleeping Lily, a sense of predatory stillness filling the air. The screen flickers with static before cutting to black. The tea party is just beginning.